Another day at the museum. I thought we would do a feature on the racing gallery. So we've just ran two of my favorites, NSU Sportmax, which yours truly, Miller, won the Northwest 3 times in the trot, Leinster, all the Irish races, 3rd at Monza, all that sort of stuff. And of course, my favorite, although I never actually raced one at Grand Prix, but it was always my favorite bike, the 4-cylinder Gilera, great Jeff Duke, great Bob McIntyre, sorted the world out. So we're very, very fortunate to have the Gilera and the NSU. The racing hall here, as you see, quite a collection that I've gathered up over the years. Well, briefly run through a few of them. Of course, this is the Porcupine. First bike to win a world championship, 1949, with the great Les Graham on board. That's the V8 motor Guzzi, 1957. Very, very fast bike. I was second at the Belgium Grand Prix in 1957. This was timed along the Masson Strait. It's something like 173 miles an hour. So, of course, that's with a full fairing, which gave you an awful lot of advantage. Another AJS. This one's close to my heart, Ulster Grand Prix, 1939. Great Walter Rusk, who was a friend of my brother's actually, because they all lived up on the Ballysillin Road, Belfast. Walter was the first man to lap at over 100 miles an hour on a British circuit. So there you go, V4, 50 years before the Japanese, V4, supercharged, liquid cooled, what more do you want? We've got some Excelsiors here, we've got 250, 350, and the mechanical marvel. This was a really, really advanced thing. 4-valve radial, twin Bowden carburetors, twin exhaust, way ahead of its time, and won the TT in 1933. Grand Prix Triumph, won the 46 Manx Grand Prix with Ernie Lyons. This one's Bill Ivy's V4 Iowa, 1969. We know it's his bike because Bill only liked a single cam rear brake. All the other ones are double cam, the back brake. So that's Bill's bike. Husqvarna, great Stanley Woods, great man. Had the honor to meet him when Husqvarna won the TT 1935. V-twin Husqvarna, and they had a disaster after the TT. They're driving back to Sweden, full team, and the TT trophy, and the van goes on fire somewhere and burns everything to the ground. So they arrive back at the factory with nothing left. Disaster. The REG, Reg Geeson, vertical twin, twin carb. He made this himself really, although he did work at Rolls-Royce. The great John Surtees, he's a friend of mine. He, at the early stages, I think something like 35 victories in the 250 class in the UK. A couple of BSAs here. This is the MC1, the Works Grand Prix bike. Jeff Duke was to race this at Silverstone. They practiced on it at Alton, very successful, so everything was ready for the word go. So the powers that be at BSA called the race team into the director's office, and the director said, we need a guaranteed win before we let it go to Silverstone. And the team said, well, it's a race, we have a great chance of winning, but we can't guarantee a win. So one of the great powers that be, who shall be nameless, said, if you can't guarantee a win, you're not going. So they didn't go. So the bike never raced in its life after spending an absolute fortune racing it, building it, leading link forks, cantilever back end, special engine, special fuel tank, fantastic. Anyway, that's the British industry. That's what probably seen it off. This one here, first aluminium frame in the world, Ernie Earls, great man. When I worked at Ariel's, his factory was only up the road a bit, and he made my Ariel petrol tanks because, as you see, he made aluminium do whatever he wanted. He was a fantastic metal man. If you look at the welding and all that, leading link forks, that's gas welded. 1951, unbelievable, unbelievable. That's the great Les Graham on the MV4. So we move on here, then a little RC125, Honda, the great Joey Dunlop and Robert Dunlop, they campaigned these and won umpteen Northwest, umpteen Ulster Grand Prix. That's a great photograph of the great Bob McIntyre at Ulster Grand Prix round the Hairpin. I remember that well on the NSU. So that's great Bob, wonderful guy, very quiet. And when we raced at Monza, he didn't like the razzmatazz like Miller, so we used to go out for a walk at night from the hotel, discuss what was going to happen on race day, etc. Great memories. We get on to AMC stuff, Matchless and AJ's. That's the G45. They made a wonderful sign, but they never lasted very long. They were never a very reliable motor. The more reliable one was the G50. That's 1963, the single, which was really a bored out 350 7R. So the Matchless G50, wonderful. But Miller started his racing career in one of these here. That's the 49 7R. I'll tell you a story. I don't want to tell you, but anyway. So Miller won his first two races. You see how that's sticking out there? Well, in the mid-out at 150, Miller's flat out down the straight, and he's trying to tuck in, get in, elbows in, knees in, legs in. And I remember something going flick at the back, and it was that filler cap opening. So unfortunately, the previous lap, Miller decided this left-hander that he was taking in third, he could take flat out and top. Well, he couldn't take it flat out and top with the whole back end of the bike soaked in oil. So Miller demolished the 6-foot hedge, flew down the road, got carted off on a barn door as a stretcher. Nothing broken, just black and blue all over the place. So there you go. Then we go to the Bultacos with Senior Bulto when I was associated. TSS Bultacos, Northwest 200 years truly. Bit of a comeback in the Northwest in '66 when I joined Bultaco. Finished fourth. I had one lap practice and then the thing seized. So I really went out in the race after not racing for about 10 years with one lap practice, but managed to get up to fourth. Then on the following weekend, it was the Leinster 200. So Tommy Robb beat me there and I was second. And then the Cookstown 100 the following Wednesday, I managed to win the Cookstown 100 done. So back in the fold. That's an interesting thing there. That's a nearly 7R megaphone. Look at the size of that, would you? You know, what a racket. I don't know where they got the dimensions and the specification for that, but that's early 7R AJ. Then we go to Joe Ehrlich's AMC's. Great Joe Ehrlich, wonderful Austrian man, and did a lot for racing. This is his 350, that's his 250, and that's his 125. That's years through Miller racing it in Ireland, the Temple 100. What happened in the Irish races? There was no practice in those days. You just started the race, Cookstown 100, Enniskillen and all those. So they used to run two races, the 200cc race and then the big race. So Miller used to borrow something like this to race in the 200 class so he knew where to turn in the main race. So there you go. That's young Tommy Robb there, and MZ. This is a story and a half. This is the fastest two-stroke in its time, 59. Walter Codden, the great Walter Codden, and he worked with Von Braun on V2 rockets. Believe it or not, rockets. So he worked with Braun, and they came across the two-stroke combustion calculations and formula. So when he transferred that to the two-stroke, it transformed two strokes. And this thing was hundreds of miles quicker than anything else. And then, of course, you know the later story when Degner did a runner and took all the plans to Suzuki, and then Yamaha copied them, and all the Japanese copied from the V2 rocket. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Little Mondial 125 ex-Morris Ken. Reynolds used to make racing frames, Ken Sprayson. And he's been here, he's seen it. and showed me the drawings of the frame. Number one, first Reynolds racing frame ever made. So there you go. There's a nice photograph of Jim Redman. Jim, a good mate of mine, great rider. That's on the 250 Honda. So we moved on this end of the woods. That's some of Miller's racing history. That's the Leinster 200, right? First time ever in history. This bike here, right? That one there. Bob Brown and I were having a great ding-dong. All race for the 200 miles. It was serious. But it turned out that Bob Brown and I were faster than the 500s. And Miller was faster than Bob Brown. So I won the race on the outright race on a 250, beating the 500s. But I must admit it was a bit hairy at times, off stone walls and serious. I think that's a photograph there of the NSU, probably in the Northwest 200. So here we go again, another villa. This is Miller's 250 World Championship bike, 1957, third in the World Championship on it. Should have went a bit quicker. 𝘃𝗂𝗽𝗃𝗃𝗃 Augustini's had a ride in this actually. 𝘃𝗂 was a great guy, great man. 16 valve 750. They made it for the Imola and the Daytona 200-mile race. Didn't do any good because it originally had shaft drive, which flew to bits, so they converted them later to chain drive. That one there is quite unique. RS 125 V4. Stuart Graham rode it in the Japanese Grand Prix. I think he finished second. Stuart loves that bike, and of course he rides his father's Porcupine at Goodwood, etc. for us. But that was a forerunner of the big Suzukis, the Mark IVs and the Mark Vs. That was a 125 V4. I managed to get that off Barry Sheen when Barry Sheen's collection, great guy, great man. When he was emigrating to Australia for some reason. Oh, it was health reason. He liked the climate out there, so I had that off him and some other bikes, including this box of spark plugs that he gave me. So there you go. That's from Barry. Box of his racing plugs, you know. In the mid-50s, if you didn't have one of these in the 125 class, you were wasting your time totally. These things were way ahead of everything else. Although they cost more than a Manx Norton, but if you didn't buy one of these, I think a Manx Norton cost about 500 quid new. I think it was 398 quid plus VAT or purchase tax in those days. And this was getting towards 500 quid. I love riding this at Goodwood. There's a photograph of yours truly on it, Goodwood. Handy bike to ride, great Walter Zeller. Used to have great times with Walter Zeller. How he managed to master that beats me, because Jeff Duke tried to ride it. Surtees tried to ride it. None of them could ride him. And Walter almost won the World Championship. I think John Surtees beat him by 2 points or something over all the season. But I remember we were doing the classic race at Francorchamps, Belgium. And I was on the Gilera and he was on this. I was always one for Jeff Duke's nice small movement into corners and stuff. So I'm following Walter and he gets this thing and he flings it into the corner and he picks it up and he throws it into the next corner, real vicious. And he's got the handlebars locked like that, and there's no way that thing's going to take a head shake with Walter on board. But great time for Walter. And and of course, pre-war, 1939, the great George Meyer, he won the TT on a supercharged one of these, and had the honour of meeting George Meyer at the TT. Great guy. He and Stanley Woods had a bit of a banter together. I loved it. It was a wonderful experience to see the two of them having banter. Talking about Stanley Woods won a TT on this in about 1936. 120 degree V-twin. Fantastic bike. Bob Foster again, he rode it in the TT. Ernie Lands rode it, and Man of Barrington rode him too. But this was Moto Guzzi's biggest mistake, right? So they had this developed, they were winning Italian European championships on it, and then they decided to go to the single for some reason. But I did mention 120-degree twin, so a few years later Ducati came on the scene with a 120-degree twin sports bike, took the world over, sold millions of them. So really, Moto Guzzi had the oyster in their hand and they let it go, so there you go. So Guzzi's biggest mistake, a little selection of Aermacchi's, that's a 125, 250 and 350. Full set. I rode that at Goodwood a few times. I quite enjoyed it, racing that at Goodwood. It was really fantastic. In the 350 class, didn't do too bad on either, you know, blew them off. So there you go, that's a big Triumph, or BSA triple. Very similar to the Triumph triple. So that's a Bob North frame, which is a bit special. Dreaded CZ, there's Miller and the TT on it, 1958. I think it must have been the slowest 250 in the class. Miller finished 4th or something on it. You could literally run harder, you know. But there you go. Not much competition to MVs and Mondials. Then we've got the Mark IV Suzuki RG500, the H1R. They used to say, if you raced one of those, you need to spend the winter catching flies so you could catch the clutch before you seized up and flung you down the road. So you had to spend the winter catching flies so you were quick on the clutch. And then this one here is 500 NS. And again, 3 cylinders seem to be a very good formula for racing. 2 cylinders, two going up and down like that and one going at the front. So 3 cylinder, 1 pokes out the front, 2 goes up like that there, 2 stroke. So that came from an Irish collection, Ulster collection, the great Jim Lilly, great friend, great man. He had a racing collection and he fell into poor health with the dreaded cancer, and so he came to an agreement to sell his bikes to the museum. And I should think he's a happy man looking down, seeing all his bikes on display. We've got them all working, all running. There's only 2 bikes here that don't work. One's the 250 Honda and that 3-cylinder decal. Both have got crank problems, and they have new cranks made for them that cost a fortune. So those are the only 2 that don't work here. If you asked me to start that up, Jim and I could take that out there, fuel it up, oil it up, battery on, and hey, gusto, you'd be off in the TT. There's Miller in the TT. There he is, fastest man. I don't know where that is, about the bungalow or somewhere, but lovely bike to ride. Full fairing. These fairings were banned in '57 because they were so dangerous in windy conditions. Like, you nearly get blown off the circuit. Somewhere like the Belgium Grand Prix with wide open spaces, side wind. So the FIM banned them in '57. So '58, they went to this type of fairing here, where you had to have the front wheel exposed so you didn't get the side pressure on the wind. So there you go, wonderful. There's another one down here we haven't looked at, which is not in the racing gallery. Right, here we go. Brough Superior, Pendine, 1925. Big 1000cc Jap motor, raced by the Fernahoe and Joe Wright and all those famous racers. And believe it or not, that's Eric Fernahoe's helmet that he used in 1930. Unbelievable. If you look at this 1930 racer, the 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 And if you look at this here, it's really unbelievable. So I'm not telling you a duffer. 163 miles an hour 90 years ago. 163 miles an hour running on alcohol special racing fuels and so forth. In those days, they really went to town on the fuels. Big pegs on the end of the footrest so your footrest don't fly off them. But brave men, 163 miles an hour, exposed chains. Funny enough, it's only got a 2-speed gearbox in it. Really, it's a torquey old engine. Suppose you used about bottom gear to get up to about 80 miles an hour on the run up to the speed trap, and then you would stamp it into the top when you get up to about 140 or something, and keep going, and 163 miles an hour. And then of course you had to do 2 runs in case there was any wind assistance. There's Joe Wright, full steam ahead, 163 miles an hour. See the helmet, see the back wheel? Fantastic. Anyway, I think we've done most of the racers. Hope you've enjoyed it. I enjoyed riding the Gilera. Even better, I enjoyed the NSU. Happy memories, Northwest 200, Ulster Grand Prix, all those races. Great memories, and come again, come and have a look at us.